Hari Om, everybody. Welcome to the segment on patriotism. You would have seen 5 segments before this. This is the 6th one. So, taking you through, my name is Radha Narayanan. So, what is our vision? I've been sharing this every day because it is important and clear to know what is the basis from which we are going to handle these youngsters. Today, I won't call them children anymore because they have come to the age of 7th, 8th class. So they have become teenagers now. Am I right, Swamiji? Aren't they 10, 11 years of age? Yeah. So we are dealing with teenagers here. So we're going to give them a perspective for life. What they learn here, they're going to be applying immediately. It's not like in the long term they're going to apply, but immediately. So the facets of patriotism that we'll be covering for them is one, what is the contribution of India to the world so that they become proud about what their forefathers have done. Second one, unity in diversity, because despite us being diverse in various things, right, from food to language to literature to the way we look, the way we follow things, still there is a common thread that runs through that makes us all Bharatiya. So how to find that common thread and stick on to that and be proud of that? That's what we deal with here. The strengths being, there are lots of strengths to India. So to highlight a few is what this section is about. The other one is about pride of the country. So this is about people or the resources that we have, which we only when we know about it, we will become proud. So this is to sensitize us to all of that. And the next one is about civic consciousness, making us more responsible, positive contributors to the society at large. So the lesson we're going to start with is from class 7, Dharma and Leadership. This is a brilliant lesson. I love this lesson. And this lesson is like, it's infinite. It doesn't stop. But I had to stop it according to time. I had to curtail it according to time. So objectives that we want to show across, like put across to children, is number one, what do they have to know? They have to become aware of India's thought leaders who persisted back then in the Vedic period, then during the classical era, and then now also they persist. So that thread we will have to give it to them, saying they have always existed, and the principles of governance of the Indian style are unique and has always existed. What do we want them to feel? We want them to feel proud about the relevance, that whatever somebody said 1,000 years back, it is still relevant. Somebody said 5,000 years back, still relevant. So those kind of things we have to connect it to their daily life and give it across to them. What do we want them to think? How can I use this in my daily life so that it becomes practical knowledge? It doesn't stay as information. It doesn't become an information overload. What do we want them to do? Follow these principles and benefit. Benefit is definitely going to happen, but only if we follow them, right? So this is a question put across to all of you now. Chat box alert. Can you name some great leaders from the history of Bharat? They could be kings and queens. They could be anybody. History of Bharat. The earlier ages, the better. Okay. The first name always comes as Gandhi. Leader nale, it's Gandhi. Shivaji, Ashoka, Chanakya. Okay. Bhagat Singh, Kattabomman, Shankaracharya. Okay. Got quite some names. Now going ahead with my next question. Okay. Who guided them and who were the kingmakers? Suppose they were kings, glorious kings. Who made them the way they are? We are proud of, say, Chandragupta Maurya. We are proud of, say, so many other kings, right? So, what was their driving force? Who influenced? Gurus, Devi, father, own dharma. Interesting answers. Okay. Advisors, motherland, love for the country. Okay. Great gurus. Okay, some of you have written Chanakya's name many times. Okay, very good. So, okay, annotations again. Sorry, I will have to share the slide again. Okay, so who were the kingmakers? Of course, every one of our kings did not become what they were all by themselves. They needed guide, they needed gurus, and these were our rishis, very strongly rooted in the spiritual culture of India. Right, so you can see Chanakya as one of the greatest gurus. Yes, he is one of the famous ones as well, but there were so many others who were actually the brains behind the kings, and we don't know much. Vidyaranya, how many of you have heard of Swami Vidyaranya? He was the guru of Hakka and Bukka, who went on to start the Vijayanagara Empire, lay foundation for the Vijayanagara Empire. And you know what are the glories of Vijayanagara Empire? If not for them, most of the temples that were resurrected, especially in the south of India, wouldn't have been there today for us to enjoy. So imagine the kind of guru they had. Of course, Chhatrapati Shivaji, the person who was the, you know, the lighthouse for him, Samartha Ramdas ji. So all these gurus, why are they required? Is it not enough that a Kshatriya, a ruler, is valorous, brave, brilliant? That is enough, right? Why do we need gurus? Because it is not just running an empire is not just a patch of red roses, you know. It's not always going to be happy, happy, happy. There's going to be an adversity. There's going to be happy moments. There are going to be tough decisions to be taken. Who's going to guide you during those tough times? There are going to be ethical dilemmas. Is this something I should do, or is this something I should do? Who's going to help us through? So that is when a guru helps, and the guru bases their decision completely on the Dharma Shastras and Niti Shastras. It was not their own things. They don't, reel their own things. It's all from the Shastras. Okay, here we start with a story where Netra becomes a school pupil leader. And she comes and shares the happy news with her parents and her brother. And immediately her brother's name is Vidura. We wantedly named him that. So Vidura immediately says, yes, sister, come on, you, Didi, you have become the, SPL. Now I can do anything in school. And I can say, hey, you know who my Didi is? She's the SPL. And immediately the father stops and saying, if you were the real Vidura, you wouldn't be speaking like this. And then both the children ask, who is that real Vidura? Who is that? And then starts the lesson plan on Vidura Niti. So to set a context about who Vidura is, how many of you know who is Vidura? Yes, raise of hands. You know who is Vidura? Okay. If you know or don't know, basically Vidura, okay, thank you. Basically, Vidura was the brother of Dhritarashtra in the Mahabharata. So what happened in the Mahabharata? Okay, we will stop raising hands. Thank you. What happened in the Mahabharata? It was the throne was given down, and Bhishma Acharya took a backseat saying, no, I'm not going to marry. And he made a promise and he had to stick to his commitment. So to take the Kuru clan ahead, it was either Pandu or Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra was born blind. So he always had a complex, an inferiority complex, that he wasn't as good as his brother was, and there was always favoritism for his brother. That was his thinking. And Pandu, being a good king, he did a lot of things, but then there was a stage where he committed a crime unknowingly, but still he had to take the responsibility. So that is what his integrity demanded. So he walked away from the palace life, and the kingship was given over to Dhritarashtra. Even though he became the king, mentally he was still a crippled person, because it was like I will become the king, but still there was insecurity all over, saying, what if Pandu comes back? What if people compare me to Pandu and see that I have not done this? Oh, when Pandu was there, this person was this way, this person was this way. So it's always some kind of an insecurity he had. And who was making best use of this insecurity was his son, Duryodhana. So he was blindly attached to Duryodhana, his eldest son, who was the next in line for the throne. But actually speaking, Pandu's son Yudhishthira should be becoming the next king. But Duryodhana was eyeing the throne. So this is the context setting of Mahabharata. So here there needed to be a person who was very grounded, who was completely knowledgeable of the Shastras, the scriptures, and guide Dhritarashtra and keep him from emotionally getting swayed. So that person was Vidura. And from that was born Vidura Niti. Vidura Niti was a dialogue between Dhritarashtra and Vidura, where lots of principles of management and governance came out. So why is it required for a 7th standard child? A 7th standard child must be 9 years old or 10 years old. Why does somebody in 9 or 10 years need to know about governance? Are they going to go into politics? So we immediately connect governance and politics, and this is not something I require, blah, 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 blah. But governance happens everywhere. So you are a leader or you are a follower, come what may. So even in a class, there is a class monitor, right? The class monitor has to do his or her job to the fullest of their capacity, correct? So how do they ethically make their choices? How do they go forward? So that is what is brought forth in this lesson in a way that the child can relate to it. So I'm going to ask a few questions right now, and this will not be an yes no answer, but it will be say a few lines of explanation about it. So Vidura's leadership 101, these are some questions that the child will ask you. So what would you say? And what did Vidura say? Okay. What should you do as a leader when friends and family ask you for favors using your post? This happens. This happens even to us. So what would you ask your child to do? What would you ask your student to do? Anybody? Okay. I'm going to unmute somebody. Krishna Reddy sir, can you unmute yourself? Can you answer this question? Yes, Krishna Reddy sir.
Brother, have you asked him to unmute?
Yeah, they have unmuted, but they're not speaking. Sir, you can speak, sir. We can hear you. Speak. Not speaking.
I do not know, madam.
That's okay, sir. What would you do when a child says, my friends are trying to take advantage of me having the post of a leader? So what would you say to the child? Okay. I'm getting some answers on chat. Yes, sir. Okay. I think there is a delay there. So sometimes we should ignore, I never misuse my power. We should say no. Okay. Okay. Be politely firm, not to be biased. Don't be partial. Okay. So it's right to say don't be partial, but it is important to say how to do it also. Otherwise, how does it go to the child? Right? So the whole point of this lesson is to convey such a heavy concept in a simple child-friendly way. So don't let personal emotions or bias color your decisions. So this is what Vidura says. Don't become another Dhritarashtra. When you keep this catchphrase saying don't become a Dhritarashtra, because Dhritarashtra was feeling completely dependent on his son. He was feeling insecure for his son. He was like, what would my son say? How does it matter how he says? You should know when you are a king and when you are a father. Similarly, if you can tell your students saying, you should know when you are a leader and when you are a friend, you should know the difference between the two. Probably they can take a better decision then. Next question. What should you do as a leader when you get appreciated for good work? Okay, you can chat it through. You're appreciated for good work. How would you react to it? Okay, I will say thank you. Okay, share it with the team. Recognize the teamwork. Okay, become humble. Accept it. Remain stable. Recognize them. Be thankful. Be committed to do better. Nice. Okay, so what does Vidura say? So Vidura says the leader should appreciate the understanding and hardworking, loyal ones by treating them in a manner that you will treat yourself. How would you treat yourself? Suppose you are part of the team and there is a leader to you and the leader has been appreciated. What would you expect the leader to do unto you? How would you treat yourself? So if you find, if you just copy the same pattern and put it in a template saying, I will also appreciate somebody else the same way I would like to be appreciated, there goes. And this is what he says. Who is more cruel than a leader who enjoys alone without delivering appropriate share to the subordinates? This is what Vidura says. He calls somebody stealing credit as a cruel person. Okay, it's not just inconsiderate, cruel person he calls them. So what should a leader do when someone uses abusive language against him or her? Because this happens, you do something and they don't like it. Not everybody is going to accept every decision of yours. So they're going to take it out and take it out on you. So how are you going to face it? Waiting for answers. So how do they react? They have to react, of course. How do they react? When somebody is using abusive language at you, saying, you're not worth this post, why are you sitting here? What would you do? Respectfully disagree and calmly ask them to abstain. Appreciate. Previous question, okay. Remain calm. Respond with understanding. Ignore criticizing. Feeling unworthy, okay. We should be calm and composed to avoid the situation being worse, okay. Calm. So he was, you're very close to what Vidura also said. He said, it's a very interesting answer. Huh? He said, your patience is sufficient to burn that person from within and to destroy the virtues that were earned by him or her. That is, sometimes when somebody is just pouncing at you and you remain calm, everybody is looking at both of you. They respect you for handling the situation and not letting it go worse. So your patience is sufficient to burn that person from within. They want to incite reaction from you. They want to trigger you. But at that time, if you don't get triggered, that itself is a victory, right? So that is what emotional development also said earlier, right? So let's learn a little about Chanakya. Chanakya was the visionary kingmaker who actually made Bharat the way it is today. So what happened back then? What is the context? Because if we don't say the story, it will all become data. So in this lesson, especially, I want to take time and say the story, because if you don't say the story, it doesn't stick. It just becomes fact. Okay. So long ago, there was this guy, Alexander. Okay. He was from Greece and he wanted to conquer the whole world. And he wanted his empire to start and end where the sun rises and sun sets. So he came with a big army and he was conquering every place that came on the way. You can see the map, it is there in the book. So as he neared Bharat's borders, there was Takshashila, which is one of the greatest universities of those times, and the dean of the university was Acharya Chanakya. So he knew that there is a big danger coming to India. So the only way, that time India was integrated culturally but not geographically. Geographically, it was still under different princely states, different kings and all of that. So through dharmic laws alone, we were bound together. So Acharya Chanakya thought, okay, the only way, he foresaw that even before being attacked, he foresaw that attack is going to happen. And how do I thwart that? So he said, okay, let me get the country together and we need one common administrative system. So for that, the king should be one common guy. So that time, Bharat's map looked like this. So the majority of the empire was under Nanda Empire. Okay. And he approached Nanda and said, this is my proposal. This is my plan of action. King, please listen to me. So those days, Brahmanas were supposed to be the advisors to the kings. But this king took him for granted and thought this was not worth listening to. So Chanakya was pushed out of the palace. But now Chanakya, just because his ego was hurt, he cannot say, I don't want to save Bharat Mata anymore. He still was feeling responsible for the motherland. So what he did, he built the empire from the building blocks, like from the bottom. So he found a guy, he trained the guy, he groomed him to become the king, and he was Chandragupta Maurya, one of the greatest emperors that we know of in Bharat. So that is where an Acharya comes in. The Guru was able to foresee a problem. He was able to find a solution before the problem came in, and he strategized till the end. And what all happened in the story, there is lots more. So this is about Chanakya. So a little bit of a story before we go into the next section, which is Acharya Chanakya and his students were walking through a market one day, and there was a thorn bush that actually pricked Chanakya's leg. So the students immediately took the thorn out, they threw it, and they started walking. But they saw that Acharya stopped behind. He was not walking with them. So when they went back and saw, Acharya was looking at the thorn bush, thinking deeply. And then he instructed the students to go and bring milk with honey. So they bought milk with honey, and Chanakya poured the whole thing at the root of the thorn bush. And the disciples were like, why is he wasting milk? Why is he wasting honey? Why on the ground, just pouring it on the ground, that too at a bush which is already lost all its leaves and all that. It's just a thorn bush. And at that point in time, when somebody asked, why are you doing this, Acharya? He said, whatever it is, we will have to attack the root of the problem. So today you will pull out the bush and come out, but the roots are even deeper. So from that root, the thorn bush will come up again. Then who will solve the problem? So he believed that you have to get rid of the root cause and the effects will disappear. So any problem, we should attack at the root. So it's such a very important lesson, not just for administering a country. Think about our own health, okay? Like Rohini was talking about Ayurveda, right? So what does Ayurveda envision? What does it do? When you say, I have a headache, the doctor doesn't just write a prescription, write something and give it to you. They will first ask what caused this headache. Headache could have come because of bad eyesight, could have been because you didn't sleep well, because of indigestion, it could be because of anything. If you don't clear that problem, this headache is going to come again and again. Okay, so a balm will not do the job. A balm will only take care of it temporarily. So that way you have to attack the problem at its root. This way, when you explain to the child, they will understand. Oh, okay. So how can a leader be balanced with discipline and friendship? How can they balance both? So an interesting answer to that is given in the book, saying you give your friends responsibility as a leader and make sure that they do it. And once they they do it, you appreciate them. So this way they have respect for you as a leader. So be a leader, but take along your friends, but don't misuse your post to help your friends in the wrong way. So that's a very interesting thing to tell a child. So does a leader require spiritual strength? What do you guys think? Yes, we saw right in the first slide, right? If not for spiritual strength, we will be swaying for every problem. We won't be grounded. So that grounding is brought in by a spiritual thought leader. So in this case, Chanakya says a person should be a Raja Rishi. What is Raja Rishi? Raja plus Rishi. So you should be Raja. And Gurudev also said a very interesting, for those of you who know his saying, he says, be Raja outside and Ram inside. So here Chanakya and Gurudev are saying the same thing. Ram or Rishi inside, meaning inside you have to be simple. You have to be grounded. Outside you have to think about the people around, all the responsibilities you have to take. But inside you should be grounded. If you're not grounded, you're going to be swaying in every direction. There's a quick interesting question. Hundreds of years ago in ancient India, there lived a king called Amarashakti. He had 3 sons who were dull-headed and they were not interested in the traditional style of learning. The king requested the renowned Vishnu Sharma to teach the princes, and he was willing to pay how much ever required. But Vishnu Sharma said, I am not interested in your money, but I like the Saraswati Leela. That is, I like playing with Mother Saraswati. I take it as a challenge to get all the spiritual wisdom into these kids within just 6 months. And he was able to do it. How did he do it? What do you think? In fact, the clue is that whatever he created is still available for us to teach. That's right. It's the Panchatantra stories. So if you see the Panchatantra stories, it will look like they are just animal stories and all of that. But the basis of the Panchatantra, the 5 of them saying gaining of friendship, whom should you have friendship with? Loss of friendship. How can friendship go away? Because how do you make allies and how do you break allies? Both of it. And then of war and peace. Crows and owls, it is called, of war and peace. How should you decide during such situations? And 2 more. So Panchatantra teaches you the principles of being a king, but in an elementary way. So imagine a child learns this as when they are young. Okay. And this will, as they age, it will give the deeper philosophy, the deeper meaning later to them. So that is what is the Indian style of learning. It gives it at in different ways at different points in time. Okay, not going into further details. This lesson has an activity called Red or Black, which is a game theory based activity. How many of you know what is game theory? Game theory is basically, I have to think of something, but based on my thinking, the opponent will think of something. Based on what the opponent would probably do, I have to think of the next move. It's almost like chess, right? I think of something thinking, okay, that person will move that, and based on that, my next move will be. So in this game, it's very easy to play and very fun. And easily you will be able to bring through the message as well. So all teams, there are, say, about 2 teams, okay? Both the teams are given red chit and black chit, red or black, okay? So if both of them are showing a black, they will both get 50 points each. If one shows a red and one shows a black, the red one will get 100, the black one will get 0. And if both of them show red, they will get 0. Okay, so if you go a couple of times in this, what do you think you would show? What is the first thing you will show? Red or black? Black is 50 and 0, red is 100 and 0. Okay. Black. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing. I'm on gallery view. Now just raise your hand. How many of you will show red? Raise your hand, raise your hand. Let me see. Not the hand raise, just raise your hand physically. Let me see. How many of you? How many of you will show the black? Okay. How many red again? Show me red again. If you don't raise your hand for both, what do I think? It's supposed to be an interactive class. And you have to show red or black. You cannot say, I surrender. That's not an option given. Okay, fine. So now we will go into why red, why black. Okay. So when you go into this game, very interestingly, red might look like it is paying you off. It is giving you 100 points or 0. But when you keep doing red, both of them want to win. Red. That means you will end up getting 0, 0, 0, 0 in every round. But if you show a black, even if they show a red, or I mean, even if the other person shows a black, both of you showing black, at least we will get 50. So we will be able to progress in this game only by showing black. If we show red again and again and again, we are not going to win. So this is a principle that is a win-win situation. So the Indian governance system always looks at a win-win situation. I should also gain, the opponent should also gain, rather than winning at somebody else's cost. It's a very beautiful way to say this concept to the child. And you can have discussion in class saying, practical problems that are there in the society, like if your street has an overflowing drainage, okay, whom do you approach to solve the problem? If there is a broken street light on the street, and it is shady and dark, so what are the steps you take to solve that issue? So if there is a deserted van outside your house, and whom do you complain to? What is it about? So those kind of questions you can put forth. Sometimes they will come up with creative answers. We'll say, you go back home, you ask your parents the same thing and come back with answers. So that way they will become more responsible. They will become more alert. Next time they see somebody dropping garbage, they'll say, oh, don't do this, or, they will take an action. Something they will do. So what do we want them to learn? We want them in class. You will present management principles as stories so that it is relevant to them and it is easier for them to digest. Otherwise, it becomes a very heavy history session, which we don't want this to be. Intrigue them about management principles in local languages. For example, this is what I got today as a forward in the morning. One from Tirukural. Tirukural is a local, like a Tamil snippet kind of a thing, written by Tiruvalluvar, and it has so many fields covered, and management is just one of the fields. And it says a minister who, by looking at the king itself, understands what he wants to say, is an ornament to the king. So that is the one which is relevant to us. So I took that. So impress upon them the importance of value-based leadership, ethical leadership. And as an assessment, what you can do is you can find out more about Chanakya and other gurus, what they said. What do you like from what they said? Those kind of things you can have a conversation on. Then you can also think about all the favorite kings. Say Shivaji is your favorite king. Raja Bhoja is your favorite king. What was the best law he brought in? What is the best policy in his kingdom? And then the third activity can be choose a class monitor. How do you choose a monitor? Is it because, hey, he's my friend, so I make him monitor? Or do I have a reason why that person should become a class monitor? Something like that. So that way we can assess whether they understood. The next one we're going to see is about this. We are transcending to class 8 because of lack of time. So lesson here is Indian National Pledge. And it is under the civic consciousness category. So the objective is for them to know the pledge, feel grateful and responsible towards contributing to the nation, because even as a child, they can contribute. How can they? That is what we're going to see in this lesson. How can I contribute to the nation and doing it? Okay. So what makes a nation? That's the first question. Okay. Answers on chat box. What makes a nation? People. Are we deciding not to answer? Can we be participative quickly? Citizens, each one's personal integrity, okay? Responsible integration, people, government, okay? So is it just a geographic boundary, or is it the character that is built through cultural cohesion over a period of years? This is something we have to ask ourselves. So it is not just a geographic boundary. That way, if you see somebody, say your cousin is in US, can he still call himself an Indian citizen or not? What do you think? Somebody living, so a child comes and asks you, okay, my cousin sister is in the US. She is also calling herself an Indian, but she doesn't live in India. So is it about the parents? Is it about the common vision? Okay, relation. So it's about not just about whom you're born to. It is about the cultural fabric of that nation. Is that there in you also? That's what we're going to see. Okay, so this lesson is going to be on the Indian National Pledge. So quick, I want to unmute somebody. If you raise your hand, I will unmute you rather than somebody else. Anybody here who knows the National Pledge? Come on. Parvati Balaram. Please unmute yourself. Have you unmuted yourself?
You can hear me?
Yes. Can hear you. can you read the national pledge? There are blanks there. Without the blank, you should read. Can you do that?
Yes, I'll try. India is my country, and all Indians are my brothers and sisters. I love my country, and I am proud of its rich and varied heritage. I shall always strive to be worthy of it. I shall give my parents and teachers and all elders respect and treat everyone with courtesy. To my country and my people, I pledge my devotion. In their well-being and prosperity alone lies my happiness.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Right. So that has come into us because we have said that so many times, right? So what is the meaning behind each of this? Every line is very, very meaningful. Are we living our pledge? So that is what this lesson is about. Every citizen of a nation takes a pledge to serve the country, protect the resources, preserve its culture, and uphold its integrity. So here are your questions. Like this first question I've already asked you. So can my NRI cousin also call India her country? So the answer is yes, our culture and heritage creates a sense of identity. Okay, so our nation is not just a geographic boundary, but identifying with the history of our civilization helps us bond with the nation. Okay, so where we are born or where we live, stay, doesn't matter. We are still Indian. We can still be Indian. Okay, so birth alone doesn't make you a Bharatiya. That is something we have to tell the child. Just because you're born here, you have to follow the principles, you have to take forth the culture. That is when you are truly in spirit a Bharatiya, not just by birth. But in current times, is it even possible to see everyone as brothers and sisters? All Indians are my brothers and sisters. Is it possible? That's the next question. If it's possible, how? So here is the example that we have given in the book. For every line, we have given examples of great people. So here is Langar Baba. Have you heard of Langar Baba? He actually spent all his life savings in just serving food to 500 poor patients every day outside hospitals. He did this selfless service for over 19 years. Okay, and he was a recipient of the Padma Shri Award recently, that is in 2020. So would this have been possible if he did not think of them as same family, brothers and sisters? The next one, I love my country and I'm proud of its rich and varied heritage. Yes, so here we give the example of a couple who got the Padma Shri Award, Sampath Kumar and Jayalakshmi. They ran the only Sanskrit magazine. Okay, even though we say, oh, Sanskrit is a dead conversational language, it is not so. There is a village in Karnataka completely speaking only in Sanskrit. So they ran the world's only daily newspaper published in Sanskrit for a long time, despite making laws or whatever, because their principle was to run it, because they have been handed over that from their ancestors. Okay, so that brought them to a state of getting Padma Shri Award. I shall strive to be worthy of it. Why would we say I shall strive to be worthy of it? Why should we do that? Because aren't we born into this culture? Aren't we automatically worthy of it? Why would we say I shall strive to be worthy of it? What is important? It's important that our great ancestors have protected and preserved this for a long time, and we have to take it forward. And if we don't take it forward, young or old, if we don't take it forward, the whole bridge will stop with us. Imagine a big chain and one link is weak. That means the chain will break at that link. And after that, the chain no longer exists. So we should live up to what has been handed over to us. And here the example of RSS has been given and how they have been cultural ambassadors, protectors of Bharatiya culture in every which way. Okay. And the next one is about, to my country and my people, I pledge my devotion. In their well-being and prosperity alone lies my happiness. Here we have given the example of Popatrao Baguji Pawar. So he was a simple sarpanch of a village. Okay. And this was one of the dry villages, drought like drought prone zone of Maharashtra. But through his amazing ideas and innovative ways, he turned it into a green model village, and so many people are copying that model today. Okay, so that way, even if he had personal, there were so many things. So it's not an easy task. It's not like he was born with a silver spoon. So he voiced his opinions against all odds and made this happen. So his happiness was in the happiness of his people. So truly, he was one person who followed the pledge. That way, we give a lot of examples in this lesson and make them feel proud of the pledge and live every line of the pledge. Next time, on every Monday or Saturday, whenever they are saying the pledge, national pledge, they should feel for it. If we don't feel for it, we don't change. Okay. So here is a quick activity. Yes, here is a quick activity. You can just say yes or no. Not you don't have to say it to me, you have to say it to yourself. It's a personal activity, and you just count the number of yeses and number of no's at the end of it and tell me. You have 1 minute. 30 seconds, because I'm running out of time. I read the newspaper every day. I know the current and past political scenarios of the country. For my vacation, I visit places of historical importance of India. I have read at least 3 biographies of great Indian personalities. When I visit a monument of historical importance, I hire a guide or buy a book to know and understand the importance of that place. I have never taken shortcuts or given bribes to get a work done. I never criticize, rather critically evaluate the policies, programs of the government. Have you done? Answers. How many yeses and how many no's? Quickly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just tell me the numbers. How many yeses, how many no's? Just the numbers. 3 yes, okay? 5 yes, 2 no, okay? I have 12 questions here. 4 yes, 3 yes, 4 yes, 3 yes, 5 yes, 6 yes, 8 yes, 6 yes, 5 yes, 7 no, 5 yes. Okay, so this is your score. This is your degree of patriotism, you could call. This is just a sample set of questions, okay, for judging ourselves and putting it forth to the child, saying this is how we show our patriotism. Because it is not enough that I say, hey, I love my mother. I have to also show my love to my mother. Otherwise, she will never know that I love my mother. Correct? So showing patriotism is what this is all about. So if you have 11 to 12 yeses, very good. You are a very responsible citizen of India. 9 to 10, not bad. You're nearly there. You can work a little more. 6 to 8, you can, and you need to improve, because you need to know more about India. Only when you know more, you will be proud. And that is when patriotism as a feeling will come out. 0 to 5, you seriously need to know about this country. You don't know enough. Okay, it's not about you or me. It is about each and every one of us trying to learn about our country. If we don't know about something, we cannot be proud of it. So what do you think about your score? Do you think it matters? There can be 2 reactions. You can say, hey, what is it? What is the big deal? I don't care. It's just a score. Or you can say, oh, I need to work on my score. I think I need to know my country better. So what do you want to do? You can ask the child at the end of it. What do you want to do? You can either react this way or that way. And if you react, I don't care kind of a way, then going forth, our country is going to also, your attitude is going to reflect in our country's growth. And as an activity, you can have a class bulletin where you say, what is your dream for India 2047? 1947, we got independence. 2047, what is your dream for India? So we can discuss, and we should see as teachers if most of what we have taught them comes up in that vision board, saying, okay, I want this to happen, I want that to happen. So if that comes itself, the assessment is done. Child has taken in whatever you have said. So in this class, display the pledge, send a note to the parents saying, to discuss about how they contribute to the nation, like something like paying taxes, sponsoring somebody's education, following the rules, those kind of things, whatever the parents are doing. So the child will feel, oh, my parent is also doing this, I should also do it. So assessment, as I told you, vision board itself will bring out whether the child has known or not. Swamiji, can I take 5 minutes more? Do I have the time? Swamiji?
Yes, at 3 minutes possible?
Difficult,
Yes.
but it's kind of important.
Please do.
Thank you. Okay, so this story, this lesson is super important because we should not avoid this lesson thinking it is history. Hey, they are anyway studying this in history. That attitude should not come up. That is why we have this lesson in value education. We are talking about unity and diversity in unsung heroes of India. Very different combination, right? That is because all over India, it is not just people from one background or two backgrounds. All over India, people from different races, different educational backgrounds, color, look, gender, everybody have come together for India's freedom struggle. So feeling inspired by that unity is what we want the child to take away. So who do you think got India independent? Most of us will, first answer that will come up will be Gandhi, Nehru, are the ones who got India independent. But this lesson talks about something beyond that. That is why it is very important. So if you see even the newspaper clippings, if you see the pictures from 1947, it will all have Nehruji. It will all have only that. So often we think it is only the known names. And if you have to see fancy dress, leaders of India, freedom fighters, you will see only Gandhi and Nehru. But there are people beyond that, unsung heroes of India who made it happen. So I'm going to quickly take you through this lesson. So this lesson starts with a freedom fighter and a journalist traveling on the aeroplane together, and they are striking a conversation. So this is how it goes. Quit India movement, it got over much before 1947. Then how come British left in a hurry in 1947 August? What happened to them? So this is what happened. The Prime Minister of Britain of that time had a chat with one of our governors, and he said there are two important reasons. One is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his INA creating the ruckus. The next one is decreasing loyalty amongst the Indian soldiers for the British crown, and we couldn't take it anymore. So immediately the journalist asks, how is it so? INA is a failure, right? Because they did not get our freedom. That is what they think. That is what we are made to think. But there is so much that happened behind the scenes that we need to know as teachers and see this as a story. Okay. So when we go back in time, like a time travel, 1945, what happened outside of India? The Second World War just ended, and the Allied powers, British, the US, they all won. And Axis powers, in which INA was part of, that lost. So British was ruling India. So our own soldiers in the INA, Indian soldiers, were treated as war criminals. They were brought in, and in Red Fort trials, they were all hung, they were all tortured, and all this was seen by the Indians in the British army. And they were all like, our own brothers and sisters are being hung by our army, and we are being on that side. That is not right. So despite winning the World War II, they were the ones who won the World War II for the British, the Indian soldiers, and they lost lives for the British to win. And still they were not being treated as equals. They were being treated badly. So now they started a rebellion. So this rebellion started small. Okay, only in Mumbai. Then it went on to become an open revolt by sailors and soldiers all over. From Karachi was part of India then. Karachi, Calcutta, Pune, Vizag, Cochin, 20,000 sailors, 78 ships, 20 shore establishments, all of it was involved. And then the British officers, they stopped taking orders from British officers. They started rallying around Bombay, and this became the naval mutiny. It is called the mutiny even today. It is not seen as a spark that grew for Indian independence. So they took over most of the parts in Mumbai, and they were finally, it was becoming the biggest revolution so far. And people from, that is the Air Force also joined them from Bombay, the Gurkhas from Karachi, everybody joined. The civilians also supported. If this momentum was maintained, we would have got independence much earlier. But then what happened? It all fizzled out. because the then Indian leadership saw this as a threat to our independence. Oh, if all this happens, then they won't give us our independence. We could have taken our independence from them, but we decided not to, and they were all asked to surrender. They were all arrested, given jail terms, sent back home. And most of these people, even after 1947, when we got the freedom, they were not hired back into the Navy or the Army. This is truly unsung patriotism. That is, these people's work has not been recognized. So this has to be taken through to our children. How did this affect the British going out? It was because the British got afraid now. There are 2.5 million Indian soldiers in the British Army, and this spark can come anytime, and they don't have the force to control it. So they decided that rather than to lose face, I would rather walk out than them making me walk out. So that is why they were forced to give independence to India. It is not peaceful negotiations that got our independence. So this is a story that we don't read in history. Every fact can be cross-checked. So please go do it and present our great heroes across to our children in a way that they will be proud of them. Okay, that we come to the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Radha. All of us know that the right person is speaking session on patriotism. Right? She's so inspired and she wants to do so much for the country. And I'm sure all of you know what personality she belongs to from Rohini's class. Right? Our Yuva Kendra members are so powerful, so strong, so charged up. Right? And such youngsters are our hope for the country, and our idea of the Chimya Vidyalayas. I think she herself mentioned that she is a Chimya Vidyalaya product.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm an alumni.
We are very, very proud that we have such a Chimya Vidyalaya product. Right? Who's doing such beautiful work. And she's become a trainer for Chimya Vidyalaya teachers themselves.
So the whole cycle is over now.
That's really wonderful. Thank you so much, Radha.